Welcome to the Top 10 series. Let's get straight into these very exciting tips. I've picked out a tip on each area of the game that has helped me significantly. There are many tips, and in future I'll cover many more. So do subscribe and put the notifications on. But the top 10 drills that I've chosen will also follow soon, and in combination they should give you a really good package to test out, see if it works for you as it does for me. Although most of you should know the setup position, since everything starts with the setup and so much can go wrong with the setup, I'm going to give you a quick tip on the setup position that has helped me. Most importantly, where you hold the club in your palm of your hand. So I'm a left-hander, as you know, so this is my right glove, and you don't want to hold the club like this in the palm, but actually in the fingers. The reason is, and this is something I picked up from Luke Donald, it gives you that much more flexibility for the hinge. The other thing I thought I would cover is ball position, and in essence, angle. So if you know, you take your ball position for the driver, line to the back heel or even your front toe, depending also how far you flare out your front foot. And then for the iron, it's much more central and of course closer. Your arms are still out, so your arms are out for your driver, your arms are out also for your iron, but perhaps a little less so. And then for the wedge, you're bringing in, this is a 58-degree wedge, you're bringing that in a little closer. You know, even you can do it with your feet together. You'll see that in a drill. So the ball is in line with the back of my heel at impact position. You don't want to be having the shaft lean too far out and certainly not behind. So just slightly at or ahead of the ball, but not too much. As you come down to the impact position, what you want to make sure at the same time is at the impact position, your weight is already shifted to your, in my case, the right foot, if you're a right-hander, left foot. And that means that good 60 to 70% is on the right foot as you hit through and open up your hips. So you want to come down, and now you will retain a lean towards the left in my case, because with the driver you're hitting up slightly on the ball, and you don't want to be hitting too far up like this, too late. You want to basically catch it just there as you go up. Again, the key position is ball in line with the back heel. I close my foot a little bit by flare my back foot, because being a senior golfer I need that little extra flexibility. But as you come down the ball, you want the angle of the shaft to be just at or slightly ahead of the ball, but not too much and not behind the ball. You shift your weight already onto your right foot in the case of left-handers, left foot in the case of right-handers, and yet you keep the tilt because you're hitting up on the ball for the driver, unlike the iron. Right, so the key position is that square face, your wrist, you're facing the target. Make sure you go all the way to the finish. You will also have a nice little draw. And you may just want to start with that each time and just practice that a little bit. Let me know how you get on. You want to compress your shot, which means you're coming down at it, hitting the ball first, then the ground with the divot in front of you. You want to make sure you are putting your grip along your fingers, across your fingers, not in the palm, to allow you that hinge and turn. And you want to use something called the power move. So that's a key tip, which is leaning in, bringing the elbows down, keeping the elbow and arm coming through like that. Remember, in one of the fields, this arm is further out from this arm. That allows me to have a shallow swing and have a draw at the same time. So the power move is a combination of leaning in and coming down as you turn into the ball. But first you're shifting your weight. So as you reach the top, you shift your weight onto your front foot. That's what starts the power move. And then as you open your hips, you begin to come down. That power move is that down as you open the hips, down as you open the hips. You'll hear a bigger thud this time because I am actually hitting the ball before the ground and you're hitting down the ball as opposed to sweeping it as you do a little bit more with chipping and with hybrids and fairway woods. So keep that in mind. You're trying to come down using the power move. Both hands are going to be ahead of the ball position when you strike it. So as you come down, your backhand is also ahead of the ball. And that's going to give you the right position to hit the ball. So you practice for your turn, and if your turn is such that it's better for you to place the ball a little bit further back than central, do so, because the important thing is that as you do that power move and you press the ball, your hands are ahead of the ball, and that will give you control of it. It'll give you compression, create that spin, particularly for 7, 8, 9 irons dropping onto the green, depending on also which ball you use. Another aspect that I found very helpful as a tip for my irons is to take the club, put your hands much lower down on the grip, and imagine that when you hit through just there, you feel that position. That's the position you want to be just after hitting the ball. So again, think about keeping your spine straight as you go through. That's why that hinge is very important. And the power move as you go through, and the power move as you go through. Exciting. Subscribe. Keep those notifications on. Plenty more good stuff coming. Irons is just part of the story. So let's move to the hybrid. I use this a lot. In fact, I tend to use it for shots anywhere from 170 yards to 200 yards. Different hybrids. I really quite like them. And it's a shot that is more like an iron, but a little bit like a fairway wood. More like an iron in the sense that your overall position is roughly more like an iron, but you're really sweeping the ball. You're sweeping the ball. And imagine it like this. So here's the ground, and you are sweeping the ball, letting the loft do the work. So if you see the ball here, you are sweeping the ball much more than you are coming down at it like an iron. It is a little bit like that in terms of the swing, but I found what's been most effective is really thinking of it more like almost a 5-wood, where you are swinging it along the ground. And again, you're just touching, so imagine just touching the ground, just touching the ground. You know, a quick tip on chipping. I've seen a lot of conflicting advice out there which has confused me a lot, but I think with chipping, so I'm thinking, up to 20, 30 yards, put your hands a little further down on the club, your feet much closer together, and you're trying not to have too much wrist or too much body movement, relatively speaking. And in partly it depends on how far each chip you're trying to make. Obviously, if you're trying to do a few yards, you go less back and forth. If it's bigger, then a bit larger turn. But notice that my arms are not turning too much. They're much more together. But imagine throwing a ball. If I was to throw a ball from this position and I stayed just like this, I wouldn't be able to be very accurate. Whereas I wouldn't certainly get it as far. So if I did that with that little bit of turn, so you turn through, the body turns through, but the wrists are not doing this, right? So the wrists are doing more like a putting stroke, but the body turns through. Treat the face like a mirror. You want to look at yourself as you come to the end of your swing. There, if it's a shorter chip. There, if it's a much longer chip. So you've gone through. Hello. Hello. Yeah, not so let the chip. And that's very important, because if you try to do this like an iron, where you're coming down, you're de-lofting the club. So have a look at this. This is a 58 degree. If I come down at it, it's become almost 45 degrees. Well, if it's 45 degrees, I may as well use my pitching wedge. So if what you're trying to do is use the loft, and you're trying to use your bounce as you come through, the bounce is there to help you to keep that position, then so on chipping, what you're trying to do is give the loft the job. Don't you do the job. Your job is purely to swing through. Summarize, go down on your club, less hinge and less wrist movement. Keep your arms together, let the club do the work, let the bounce just before the ball follow through. Hello, look at the face of the club. You'll be in the right position. Chipping with the hybrid. So chipping with a hybrid, I really enjoy. In fact, by the way, I often putt with my hybrid, and almost just as well as my putter. You want your hand further down on the grip. You want to keep your arms straight. Perhaps open up a little bit, just because of some of the offset on hybrids. So you may want to just open the face a little bit to compensate for the offset, and flare your foot out as well. But think of it again, as I was demonstrating earlier with the iron. You are pivoting around the ball. You're pivoting around the ball. So when you're chipping with your hybrid, you're pivoting around the ball, and you weight significantly forward, but your legs a bit more together. You weight forward, your hands ahead of the ball, and pivot, and pivot, and pivot. I really have found chipping with a hybrid very effective, very useful, saved me on many, many occasions, helped me make my par instead of a bogey. What a satisfying. So let's talk about the lob. I have my 58 degree here. Now this is a little different to chipping. If you recall, chipping, we were really doing more like a putting stroke, letting the loft. Here I'm trying to pop it up to flop. Short distances. So very important is I put weight on my front foot about 65%. I open the club face. So if that was square, I open it slightly. And then you are using much more wrist, but you're holding the club as you come through. So you're doing this. Don't try to take the ball yourself. Let the club again do the work, but you are using a lot more hinge. It's a much shorter, snappier little shot, and then hold it. Don't forget your feet are much more together, the ball perhaps a little bit behind, not a bit towards the back of your foot, but central and back, and you are flopping it. Look at my wrists. This is one of my favorite shots. I love it. Maybe it's the Mickelson effect. What would a session be without putting? So, on the tips for putting, I've done a couple of things over time. One is change my putting grip instead of and having the leading hand go down. Help me keep more stable. The other is tried some different grips like the claw grip. I still use that a lot, and I like it because all you're doing is holding it with your main hand. It prevents you from twisting your wrist as you go scrub, and you're just using this like a pendulum. It is this hand that is moving the club back and through, and this one is just, you imagine it's stuck to the club. You're not doing anything with it, so the temptation to do this or to push it isn't there. That's something to try. But basically, you want to be in such a position, you put this at your sternum, you keep balanced, feet close together, and you think, okay, I bring my hands down and hold the club. So I bring my hands down like this and hold the club. So I'm not doing a hold like I would for an iron. Remember, you're not using a wrist, you're using your arms. Keep your lower body still, keep your head still. You are then in a much better position to hit the ball in the line that you have chosen. Obviously, if you've chosen the line wrong, that's a matter of reading greens. Another tip as part of that, focus on hitting the ball in the center of the face as much as possible. So what you're trying to do, and so if you're trying to hit it in the center, get used to the center of the club hitting the ball. You're going to control the roll much better, you're going to control the distance much better, and the speed much better. So the more you focus on the face, the better. So 2 tips. One is for the grip, unless you've chosen another grip, almost come like wings on a helicopter or on a butterfly. Then put your hands together. You're using your arms only, no other body movement, and focus on hitting the ball on the center of the face. When we come to the drills, I'll be doing drills for all of the different clubs too, and I think in combination with a couple of drills that I show you for putting, which have helped me a lot, this positioning and holding of the club will help you. But I'd be excited to hear your ideas, your changes if you come up with any interesting grips that work for you, both for short and long putts. Please share. I'd like to learn too from other fellow golfers. Let's move on.